Welcome to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week, Operation Mindcrime singer Geoff Tate. New album is The Key. And my co-host joining me to talk about all of this is from the Killer Dwarfs, drummer Darrel Dwarf. Good day, Darrel.
How you doing, Mitch?
Good, good. Always a pleasure. Now,
you had me back again, man. I'm flattered.
well, you passed the audition. So I figured I'll give you a second shot.
All right, what do we got today?
Well, we've got Geoff Tate, Operation Mindcrime, the new album, The Key. Queensrÿche, their big album was obviously Operation Mindcrime, and a very substantive Canadian connection. Geoff had spent his days sitting in a local Montreal bar where he saw all these characters walk in and out, and that's where the inspiration for the album came from. He wrote about these characters, and then they ran up to Le Studio in Morin Heights, Quebec, to actually record the album, known for albums by Bryan Adams, April Wine, Rush, so much Canadiana around this that, it's almost as if Queensrÿche was a Canadian band there for a while. Were you a fan back in the days? Did the Dwarves ever tour with Queensrÿche back in the day?
Not back in the day so much, but we did one show actually in San Antonio with them in the 90s.
All right.
Or no, sorry, it wasn't the 90s. It was early 2000. It was on that Reunion of Scribes reunion we did. Yeah, we played outdoor show with Queensrÿche, and one of the things I remember the most about that was that in-ears monitors were just becoming, kind of hip.
Right.
And for people that don't know, it's like a wireless pack, and it's earphones in your ears, so you can hear the whole band, like almost like being in a studio. Anyway, Geoff was using them, and he had stripped the whole stage of audio monitors. So the stage was super clean, and it was just strange to see that. There was absolutely no monitors at all anywhere on stage, and the whole band was using in-ears monitors. And I would never do that. I like both because it really fills it out.
You like that wedge, right?
That's one thing I remember about that show.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was just at Heavy Montreal, and I stood on stage for a few of the bands, and one of these bands had these in-ears going on with no wedges, and so I stood on stage and didn't hear any of the concert. You just couldn't hear anything. There was no sound coming back at me. It was sort of surreal. You're seeing 20,000 people jumping up and down with a great concert, and you're just standing there going,
there you go. That's exactly kind of
why can't I hear anything?
I just thought it was really weird. The band was so quiet on stage. I mean,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it was very surreal, and hey, it's the way it is.
Some guys like it like that, but and to answer your other question, I was a fan for a while there. I bought the Mindcrime cassette tape and had it. And,
You're not that old. You're not that old. You bought the first CD version, right?
I don't know. I swear I had a cassette of it. But anyway, the Rocket and Horton, I think is the drummer's name. Is it?
Scott.
Rockenfield. Yeah, Scott Rockenfield.
Yeah.
Right? I got the wrong guy. Anyway, great drummer. He was a real stickler with click tracks and stuff back in the day. Very tight. But I enjoyed Mindcrime. Thought it was a masterpiece rock record.
To be fair to Scott, you need click tracks to play Queensrÿche stuff. It's a very technical and very precise music. There's not a lot of feeling to it, and I don't mean that in a bad sense, but you listen to a Jimi Hendrix or to a lot of other bands. There's feel to it. There's all kind. Queensrÿche is spot on. It's this is a song. It's 3.5 minutes, and
right? It's almost like progressive rock, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of progressive rock in the 80s, you're going to be playing a show soon called 80s in the Park out in Florida with LA Guns, Firehouse, Slaughterhouse, Lita Ford, who just was at Heavy Montreal. That should be a fun event in 150-degree heat, I'm imagining.
Yeah, this will be our second year. We were invited back. We played it last year, and it can be challenging playing outdoors in 100 degrees with 100% humidity. It was definitely one of the hottest experiences Russ and I had. But this year, the hotel's on the beach, which is beautiful, in Cocoa Beach, and they're doing the venue indoors as well. So there's an option of it. It's like an indoor kind of arena, and an outdoor stage off that as well. So there's both. So if it rains, last year rain was a real problem there. It turned it into a mud pit, and it was just kind of ugly. So the promoters have rectified that. So I think this year will be the best one yet.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. That's definitely something to see. Speaking of hot venues, back in the day, Geoff Tate and Queensrÿche played the Verdun Auditorium, a place that you played with Pantera and Skid Row.
Right.
They were on the Tribe tour, and it easily, because there's no air conditioning in that place, must have been 50 degrees Celsius, if not more. Just incredibly miserable. When you played there with Pantera and Skid Row, this is what 92? No.
Around
later.
there.
92 around, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about that Verdun Auditorium?
I just remember it was old, an older venue. I don't know how old it had been. How old is it, like, in general? Like, it already felt like an old venue in 92.
Oh God!
Right?
Honestly, I think it had been there already like 75 years or something. Now they've
I
closed
liked it though.
Yeah,
I liked it.
It's intimate. There's no air conditioning. I mean, it was built pre-air conditioning, but it's been closed for a while, and apparently they're going to renovate it, update it, and reopen it soon, so that Skid Row, Queensrÿche, Geoff Tate, and the rest of you can all come back and suffer in the heat.
Oh, isn't that special? That'd be great. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Now, other things going on is this, just before we get to the Geoff Tate interview, is the Killer Dwarfs charity golf tournament. Just quickly tell me, when is that happening? Where is the money going to, and all that fun stuff?
September 24th.
Correct.
Is the date, right?
Yes.
And it's gonna be fun. It's in Durham. I mean, where the band started in Oshawa. That's where we did our first show. So it's really a part of Oshawa, and the money is going to the food banks of Durham, out that way, for the Oshawa Whitby area. And it's going to be a collective group of people coming out, and I'm going to play a little bit of golf, not a lot. I'm not a super golf pro,
Right.
but I'm going to shoot a few holes. But a cool thing, I'm going to be setting my pirate drum kit up on one of the holes. That will be a surprise, and it'll be a photo op for everybody that comes by that hole to golf. They get to sit on my kit, take a picture with me, whatever. I'll be there all day.
Can we get a picture with Russ Dwarf in his dungarees and a little beret golf hat? Yeah,
that's a gimme. That's going to happen for sure. And there might even be a tricycle around too.
Oh, that's fantastic! Now, for folks who want to join the tournament or more information, you can email golf@KillerDwarfsBand, all one word, .com. So golf@KillerDwarfsBand.com. There's also a Facebook page to go check out, but it is the Killer Dwarfs Rock Against Hunger golf tournament, September 24th, 2015. At the Lake Ridge Links Golf Club in Brooklyn, Ontario. How do you say that? Brookline or Brooklyn? Because it's L-I-N at the end.
No, it's Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
It's pronounced Brooklyn, like Brooklyn, New York. And that's all a little area of Whitby and Oshawa. It's all connected there. Those towns are right side by side, almost.
There you go. So you've also got the Monster of Rock cruise coming up. We'll talk about that on the other side. Why don't we sit back and listen to the one, the only, Geoff Tate of, now, Operation Mindcrime. Here's Geoff. Let's just get started then with, the name of the band, first of all, Operation Mindcrime. Is this a band, and if not, why not just call it Geoff Tate?
Well, I thought about that, but I'm not as well known.
Right. Fair enough.
It's funny. It's funny in the all my career, 35 years I've been signing everything that I do Queensrÿche.
Right.
And so Queensrÿche is a very well known name, but my own name isn't as well known. But Operation Mindcrime is.
Okay.
So I needed some name recognition, and or wanted some name recognition. In this day and age, the 21st century, it's with all the communication technology and everything we have, it's tough to find information sometimes about artists and about musicians and people touring and that kind of thing. And so Operation Mindcrime is a word or a phrase that's very well known to fans of what I do. And secondly, I wanted to set a tone for what kind of music I'm doing, and that is conceptual albums to tell a story. And Operation Mindcrime signals that pretty strongly.
You have John Moyer of the band Disturbed, and you've got some other guys, Simon Wright, etc. Are these the band, or are the musicians themselves going to come in and out as needed?
Well, I was in a band for 35 years.
Right.
And I really didn't want to be in another one.
Okay.
With all that means and all that responsibility and all that,
Right.
I wanted to have kind of an open door kind of concept where people that I wanted to play with could come in, and if they wanted to play with me, and maybe they were writers or maybe they were just players, whatever, we could work on stuff, and then we could all kind of go our separate ways and do other things and have the freedom to do that,
Right.
And the guys that I wanted to play with were also of that mindset. They like to do a number of different projects. And so that just seemed like a good way to operate, for me. And it definitely keeps it all interesting, and a lot of creativity and a lot of new ideas coming in and out, which I really like that too. Like, for example, I was recording drum tracks, with Brian Tishy.
Right.
And he'd just gotten off a fusion tour, and he had all these really cool things that he'd been doing, and he was showing me these different time signature changes and the bridge between the two time signatures that you could play, and that sparked an idea that we were working on for one of the songs, and that kind of stuff just it doesn't happen that often when you have a concrete group of people, that are with each other all the time, and not playing with anybody else and that kind of thing. It just kind of stagnates, or can.
It really can. I do want to ask you just real quick before we start talking about the new album. Operation Mindcrime, the original album back in the day, was recorded at a studio not too far from me, about 45 minutes away, called Le Studio in Morin Heights, Quebec. And it was in the news today because it's gone bankrupt, and today, vandals broke in, vandalized it, and essentially destroyed it. Rush worked there, April Wine, Bryan Adams, the Police did some stuff. Just a little bit of what was that studio like working in it when you were there, because it was sort of the studio, and just any memories of its greatness, because it's sort of sad now if you see the pictures with broken walls and spray paint, and it's
that's horrible. Wow. Yeah. Well, when I worked there, it was the middle of winter and snow everywhere, and it was a cozy, warm place with a beautiful picture window that looked out on what was a lake, but you couldn't tell because it was just
frozen over.
Snow everywhere,
right.
And there was a beautiful house that was attached to it where we all stayed, and a big giant dining room table where we had meals. And the first and only time I ever met Keith Richards was there on that table.
Wow, not a bad little meeting.
Yeah, kind of a funny, weird situation. He had just finished his record that he was working on,
right.
And for some reason didn't make it up to the bed, but slept on the dining room table. And that's where I found him when I walked into the house for the first time. And so that was kind of weird. But it was a wonderful studio, great sounds in there, and a great staff of people. Paul Northfield worked a lot there, and we were really excited working with him because he was pretty much a legendary studio engineer and producer, you know. And yeah, nothing but great memories. I remember, you know, skiing at the ski slope, you know, before the studio sessions, and just really enjoying the atmosphere of the area.
How much, and I'll get off of this after this question, but how much did it contribute to the overall sound of the Queensrÿche Operation Mindcrime album?
Well, I think quite a bit. You know, you build the sound of a record around the drum kit, and the
Right.
drum kit is all about the sound of the drum kit is all determined by the room that you
Right.
recorded in. You know, and that main recording room there at the studio was a pretty big room. You know, so you could really get big sounds, or you could cordon it off and get a really tight sound as well. You know, so it was very controllable, and that's what, you know, you want when you pick a studio, is you want a drum room mainly, and then everything else is kind of standard equipment, you know, in most studios. So, and nothing else, no other instruments in a rock band are the sound isn't determined by the room, just the
Right.
drum kit. You know, if you're recording an orchestra or something like that, the room is incredibly important.
Sure.
And I'm sure they recorded orchestras and things in there too. But it was a hard-working studio. I know they worked a lot. People worked a lot there, you know.
Well, yeah, and now it's an abandoned ruin that's on the auction block, I think for like $18,000 Canadian or something. I mean, just dirt cheap. They're giving it away, which is sad. You know, sad to see. But let's get on to the key. The first.
Wow, I might move to Quebec.
Yeah. Come on back. I mean, you were here back in the, what was it, late 70s or early 80s? You were here.
Yeah, 86, 86, yeah, 86, 87.
Well, if you don't move back, you could at least maybe buy the property, clean it up, and then have that as your own personal studio. But the key, what were you trying to do with the key? Because, you know, fans have been saying, well, we want Geoff to sound like he did on The Warning or on, you know, the first. Was there any thought of that, or does Geoff just do what Geoff does, and that's just the way it is?
Well, I've actually never heard anybody say that before, but that's interesting. That's one of my least favorite Queensrÿche albums, actually. And that, in fact, that was the band's least favorite altogether. It's a horrible mix on that record. It was taken out of our hands and mixed by the guy that didn't want our input at all. Just kind of mixed it on his own and turned it in, and we didn't have any say so over it. Anyway, yeah, as I always do, I just followed my muse, you know, and wrote music that I was interested in, and music that I felt told a good story for the you know, the setting for the story to take place. The music, I think, really helps propel the story along in a lot of respects, and you know, really branched out quite a bit on some of the arrangements and you know, musical instruments. I played a lot of instruments on this album, keyboards and saxophone and vocals on this, and yeah, I had a great time making it. It was really a labor of love.
It's the first part of a trilogy. Tell me a
Mm-hmm.
little bit about that. Is this something where you're going to do one album and then part two, part three come 5, 10 years down the road, and then you do some other stuff in between? Or is it going to really be successive? This is one, two comes out in 6 months or a year, three. Is it back to back to back trilogy, or is it eventually going to be a trilogy? Okay.
Yeah, it's actually all written at the same time.
Okay.
The first one, of course, is all finished, and that's getting released on the 18th of September. The second one, we're in mix stage with it now. And the third one is, I'd say, for 3/4 of the way finished recorded. And we're just recording some drum tracks on the third one now. But yeah, it should be all three should be done. The whole project should be finished by October if all goes to plan.
Is the project just music based, or at some point do you see this as the vision or the precursor of a movie project?
Oh gosh, I never even think about that kind of thing. It's so I've been approached so many times about the Operation Mindcrime story
Yep.
from different film people and musical people, and nothing's ever come to fruition on it. So I don't think too much about that kind of stuff.
We had spoken about that in the past where the Queensrÿche Operation Mindcrime was, going to be a movie and you had worked on a script and something. If that could come to fruition, uh, where are the rights now? Is that something you can still do, or is that all sort of, the courts have taken over?
No, we reached a settlement on all that, and it's all put to bed now, which is great. I'm glad to be over that whole thing and moving on.
The original, again, the original Operation Mindcrime, you had told me at the time was going to be a trilogy as well, and you did do a part two. Is that
hmm
still something that interests you to finish it off and have a part three and sort of close that chapter, or is it just going to be left
I,
as it is?
I I think it is what it is.
Okay.
I suppose I could go back and do a prequel
Right.
for it, but I kind of moved on now. I'm interested in doing other things, and you know, yeah, I guess I've just moved on now.
In terms of touring, where do we see, when does a tour start?
It starts the end of November in Europe.
Okay. And will it be coming to North America?
Yeah, it'll be sometime in the new year, probably, after the holidays, into January, something like that is we're looking at.
You know,
We're
at,
gonna we're gonna feature the new album on the tour. I'd like to play it in its entirety. That's my plan, and
okay.
then kind of bookend it with music from my past catalog of my vast array of music.
The vast array of the past catalog. You talk about, we can talk quickly about Queensrÿche. You were with that band for 30 years, and you said before that you're calling this Operation Mindcrime because the brand is maybe stronger than the Geoff Tate name as a brand. Um, After 30 years and no longer being Queensrÿche, is there any kind of regret or sorrow? Do you look back and just say, "Oh, I wish it could have ended up differently"?
Oh, absolutely. I wish it could have ended civilly and without all the negativity surrounding it all. It was really quite ridiculous. Yeah, I wish it would have been a quieter sort of coming to a conclusion. Definitely. But it is what it is, and we have to pick up and move on and try new things.
You certainly do. Now, as you're going forward with the Key and Operation Mindcrime and the trilogy, is any of it a band cooperative where you're working with the other guys, or is it all just this is Geoff's vision and this is what it's going to be?
Uh, well, yeah, definitely. I have the final say on everything,
Right.
but I'm the kind of person I enjoy collaborative creativity. I like it when people bring ideas in or riff off the idea that I've presented and come up with something that I didn't think of. I love that. So yeah, there's a lot of everybody on this record. A lot of their input. Um, you know, it's mostly Kelly and I and Scott, our other guitar player, Scott Motton, who have been the majority of have handled the majority of the writing on the record. But when you get into the studio and you start laying down tracks and things like that, things change from your original
Vision.
concept
Right.
of rhythm and where breaks are and things like that, and the inspiration of the moment is so intoxicating sometimes. When somebody does something, oh wow, hey, do that one more time here. Oh, that's great. Oh, that made it. that kind of thing. I love that.
Why storytelling throughout an album or through your songs, like you did it with Operation Mindcrime? Why not just write 10 individual songs, throw them together, and then make an album, and then the next one be 10 other songs? Why is it important to have a storytelling?
Uh, why is it important for me?
Yeah, because you're incredibly good at it. I mean, Operation Mindcrime is brilliant, and what I've heard of the key, including reinventing the song, is brilliant. I mean, it sounds great.
Well, I like doing both.
Okay.
I like making standalone records, which I've done a lot of that. The last couple records I've made, last 3 records I've made have been standalone records, no theme or anything like that. And the last conceptual record I did was American Soldier. And I think it's just time for another one. Yep. Felt strongly about this, and I came up with the storyline and was inspired by it, and the music kind of really started happening rather quickly, with ideas coming from the storyline. So that's always a good thing, when things are starting to flow and you don't have to force it, it just happens in a real organic way. That's the best way to work.
Looking back at the Queensrÿche discography, dedicated to Chaos, American Soldier, Operation Mindcrime 2, there has been suggestions that those were essentially Geoff Tate solo albums, and in fact, some of the guys in Queensrÿche might not have even played on them. How true is that? And if so, why was it like that?
No, everybody's played on every record.
Okay.
To some extent.
Right.
In a band,
right,
in any group, there's a person, or typically 2 people, that come up with the majority of the ideas. They're just the driver. And for a band to work and to last as long as Queensrÿche did, for example, it takes a driver, and it takes other people who are passengers who are willing to put their seatbelts on and go for a ride. And it requires that kind of chemistry in order to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a driver. I got ideas. I have definite ideas on things and visions of how I want to do things, and I just present them, and everybody either gets on board or they don't, and we continue on.
Right. Are any of those albums mostly you and some studio musicians, and not the other guys?
Every album is me that I've ever done.
Right.
Yeah. It's started on the first one. They invited me to play music with them, and this is what you get. You get a guy with a lot of ideas, and you have to decide if you want to be part of them. If you do, great. If you don't, well, I'll do it some other way.
Yeah. You released Geoff Tate in 2002 and Kings and Thieves in 2012 as a solo outfit. Is there still the desire to do something solo and call it Geoff Tate and not call it Operation Mindcrime? Obviously not calling it Queensrÿche. Is that something that still interests you, where you would say something different under the Geoff Tate name?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's just another kind of form of record, I guess. The stuff I've done solo, the 2 albums I've done solo, they're not that different from stuff we did in Queensrÿche. There's similarities, because
Right.
it's my music, So, yeah, there's I guess there's differences and there's similarities in that.
You've done other things outside of Queensrÿche, including the wine and so on and so forth. At any time, will there be a Geoff Tate autobiography telling the wonderful stories of your life in Queensrÿche and everything else?
Oh, maybe if I get around to it. Yeah. I tell you, Mitch, this record is, or these three records, this has just been a ton of work. I've been working on this thing constantly since October, and I've hardly lifted my head out of the studio.
Right.
I just go for weeks without shaving, and I took a break to do the videos.
Yeah.
I haven't had much time to think about anything else because the deadline is looming.
What are the deadlines on the three releases, though? I mean, are we looking at 9 months apart, a year apart? Because if they're all done now, theoretically, part three could come out by 2018, right?
Yeah, I think they want to. Frontier wants to release them at least 9 months apart. I
Okay.
think that's the plan. Yeah.
Is there any fear that by the time the third one comes out, that it's dated, it's not what you're doing anymore, it's, oh my God, I need to redo this? Or is it like, no, this is it, I'm confident, let's just go?
Yeah. I don't see if I had something else to do, it would be a different record. You
Okay.
know, this trilogy is what I'm way interested in right now, and it's I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with the. I mean, I'd like to have it all now, quite frankly. And I'll finish with this because I know we were delayed in our interview today because of my fault, and we're running out of time also. But the Operation Mindcrime, the entire album, you've performed it. You performed it recently. Is that something that you still intend on doing, where you do the entire album?
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good.
I don't know when. Probably in the next few years, I'd say. I
Okay.
mean, a tour of it. Is that what you're saying?
Pardon me, I didn't hear that part.
What's that?
I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Are you talking about a tour of it?
Yeah, a tour. Are you planning on
Yeah,
doing more Operation Mindcrime, the tour?
yeah. I think so. Probably in the. I don't know exactly when yet, but yeah, definitely I'd like to do that again.
Good. I'm very much looking forward. Geoff, it's always a pleasure. And again, I apologize for the typo that led to this later than
No problem.
scheduled discussion. Very much looking forward to seeing you in Montreal, and I know it's a city that you're very familiar with, and hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later.
I hope so. Probably by summer, I would think. But thank you again for the interview today, Mitch. Great. I'm glad we got to connect. And
Yeah.
good luck with all the stuff you're doing. You're a pretty busy guy.
Oh, crazy busy. Yeah, I've got enough interviews, I think, to last me for the next 6 months if I didn't even do another one. And I had a chance to interview Andy Summers of the Police last week, which was an incredible thrill. I mean, Andy Summers of the
Oh, I
Police.
bet.
And of course, next year, 2016 in August, there's Heavy Montreal 2016. I would love to see you on that bill. I think that would be a perfect fit.
Yeah, that's a cool festival. That's getting pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, it's getting exceptionally big. Last year, 45,000 with Metallica. This year, just under 30,000 with Korn, Slipknot, and Faith No More. In fact, let me just ask you one last question that I'm thinking of now. We've spoken in the past, and you've said that what you were doing in '84 and '85 with the Warning, Rage for Order, and stuff was not who you were now. Um, and then you went and did Dedicated to Chaos and stuff, but had a much different sound. Where are you in terms of musically now? Have you gone
Mhm.
back to the old sound? Are you trying to create new sounds? Are you just sort of embracing all of it now?
Oh, kind of all of it.
Okay.
I'm definitely more in the vein of Rage for Order.
Right.
If I was to compare, where I'm at musically in regards to what I've done, yeah, I'm more into that phase, uh, and I guess a style, yeah, maybe somewhat more fluid than that. It was a bit rigid, in the arrangements and everything, but more in that design. Yeah.
Okay.
Except without the hairdo. Different hairdo.
I don't even have hair, so at least you can have a mohawk or whatever they call it these days. Sadly can't do it.
That's what I'm sporting right now. I got a mohawk. It's a strange thing. I get more comments on my mohawk haircut now than I've ever got on, I think, any haircut I've got. I'll walk out in public, and people just come up to me and they go, "Nice mohawk."
It makes
it's a strange thing to say.
No, it is a strange thing to say, and I'm going to ask you a strange question just based on that. Then, did you notice any difference from fan reaction? Because when Metallica cut their hair to short, people went, "Oh, it's not Metallica anymore." They're all. Do you get fans that just go, "Oh, he doesn't have the long hair"? I mean, does that play at all into the image, into the fan reaction?
I don't know. I never even think about it.
Yeah, because
I just roll with what feels right at the moment. I'm not very fashion conscious, I mean, I kind of stick to classic fashions,
Yeah.
I don't really think about it at all. Anybody that sort of would judge somebody's music on their haircut or the clothes they wear is somebody I'm not really interested in knowing.
I agree with you, but it does happen, though. Unfortunately, it does seem to happen. And I did forget. Dave Ellefson from Megadeth played on the album or appeared on the album. How was that working with him?
Oh, it was wonderful. I'd never known him before, but we ended up sitting next to each other on a long plane flight to Bolivia, and he's a wonderful guy.
Absolutely.
We had so much in common. We sat and talked for like 18 hours, and we have a lot of similar history. He's been in the same band for so long, and it just really we really clicked, and we started talking music, and I was telling him about the new album I'm working on. And when I got home, about a week after I got home, he sent me a couple tracks that he had composed, and I loved them, and we started sending ideas back and forth, and working on the song structure and all that, and got it to where we liked it. And he played bass on it, and it's great. It's fantastic working with him. He's really an upbeat kind of personality. Lots of ideas, and you don't have to pry anything out of Dave Ellefson. He just gives it all to you. He's great.
Oh, an incredible person as well. I've had a chance to speak with him and meet him. He's just incredibly nice. Does that mean, though, that he wrote the songs and you're okay? And did you have a hand in the writing too, and change it around, or is it really integrally just this is a Dave Ellefson song and we're putting it on this album?
Oh no, it was a co-write.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you, Geoff.
No problem. Good talking with you, Mitch. Take care and stay cool.
Absolutely. And when you get to Montreal, please just give me a shout. If there's anything you need for me to do, if you any help of any kind you need, I'm more than happy to.
All right, on. Thank you. All right. Well, have a great day.
You too now. Cheers. There you have it, folks. My interview with Geoff Tate of Operation Mindcrime. The new album is called The Key. I've had a chance to hear it, and I'm thinking, wow, he's really nailed it this time. So hopefully fans will agree. Darrel, we talked a little bit about the golf charity tournament. We talked about Hollywood or the 80s in the Park in Hollywood, Florida. We've also got the Monsters of Rock cruise coming up, and I'm jealous because there's a band on there called Gothard out of Switzerland. 11 consecutive #1 albums, blah, 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 blah. Love them to death. They never play North America, and you're going to get to spend basically a week with them.
Yeah, I only know about them myself due to you filling me in on them. But I mean, I love seeing new bands that I've never saw. So that's going to be fun. I'll definitely check them out by your word. Yeah. And there's some other bands on there too. DAD was a band. I had their record. They're from
Denmark, I think.
Denmark, right? And I always kind of liked them. They were kind of AC/DC-ish. And I'm going to check them out. I've never got to see them live. And I think the cruise is just the greatest thing. I really do. This will be our third year or one, well, second really for the whole band, but Russ was on it solo on the first year, so it's been 3 years of Killer Dwarfs on the Monsters of Rock cruises, and it turns into a bit of a family affair after that. The fans get to know you, they expect you to be there, and it's like almost like a boys club out there now, so it's fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And you've also got Tesla on there, and love that band to death. And one of my other co-host, who also happens to be a drummer, Johnny D of Doro, is going to be there. The other thing,
nice guy. I've met him before.
Absolutely. Yeah. The other thing that these guys all have in common is that these are all bands that should be playing Heavy Montreal and haven't. So we got to change that.
Well, yeah, you and I have talked about Heavy Montreal quite a few times, and my hat's off to them really, though, because it's such a huge event, and there's so many bands to choose from. So I guess eventually one year the Killer Dwarfs will get there, and Darrel, and maybe one year we'll be on it. But it's got to be a huge task choosing that many bands every year to play that festival.
Yeah, it really does. And of course, you've got all kinds of other things going on. Record companies have bands with new albums that they're pushing, so they want them on there. And you got to sort of mix it up between bands that are going to, go for the 15-year-old crowd, and bands for the 25-year-old crowd, and bands for the 45.
Right.
It's a puzzle, and they pull it off every year. But
I'll have to get out to it one year. I know this year you were trying to connect Jerry and I to come out, but we were in Hollywood playing the Whiskey A Go-Go, and we couldn't get back just in time. We got back while the show was still on. We stayed, an extra in California. It's so beautiful out there.
How was that, the whiskey? I mean, that is the whiskey. I mean,
it was magic.
Yeah.
It was a magical show for the Killer Dwarfs. We had played there twice before, but it was so long ago. It was in the 90s. And the thing about the Strip I love is it just really hasn't changed. The Roxy's there, the Rainbow's there, and the whiskey is there. That Strip is just magical. It's just still there. It's just crazy. And every other city in the world, their strips are gone. Like Gasworks is gone here in Toronto, and Rock and Roll Heaven, that was our little strip up Yonge Street. It's all gone. But Hollywood hangs on to it. I give my hats off to them. And that club's beautiful. They keep it up, and they say the dressing rooms are haunted, and it's just really cool. And we had a fantastic show, and we packed the place on a Tuesday night. Wow. And I was proud of that. And my cousin came out, Mars Bonfire, who wrote Born to Be Wild. I've told you about that from Steppenwolf. And he had never been there since '67. He walked into that bar for the first time since he was on stage with Steppenwolf in 1967, and he was at our show. It was so cool.
Wow. And talking about the Strip, you've got that show coming up in Toronto where guys that haven't been on stage with you for 35 years are going to come and play with you.
Right. I think might as well make it your show. We'll be the first to really let the cat out of the bag. And what's going to happen is we're playing the Rock Pile in Toronto and on the 19th of September. And Angelo, the bassist, and Bryce Truan, the guitarist from the very original lineup of the Killer Dwarfs from our debut record, are going to come to the show. And not only are they going to come to the show, they're going to bring their zebra guitars and their tiger bass paintings, the actual original basses that are on the back of the album cover. And they're going to get up and play 2 songs with Russ tonight. So we're going to do Heavy Metal Breakdown and Can't Lose off that debut record. And that will be the one and only time I know we'll ever be on stage with those guys. And it's been 35 years since we played a show with them.
Wow, that's awesome. And of course, Can't Lose is the song that when I was talking to Phil Alsamo of Pantera, he said, yeah, I remember the Killer Dwarfs, Can't Lose. It was a great song. So,
yep, it was a single in Texas. I guess he grew up in Texas. That was a hit single, Can't Lose, on KISS FM. Radio.
So you got some love there. That'll be great. Of course, we can find the Killer Dwarfs on Twitter at Killer Dwarfs. You can find me at Mitch Lafon. Anything else, Darrel?
No, I think we covered it all. I'll throw in one more thing for the fans. We're in Chicago. We haven't been there in a long time. We're in Chicago on the 12th of September, and we're in Westland, Michigan, which is near Detroit, on the 13th of September. So we want to see Dwarf Nation, that area, out to see us. It's been years again since we've been there.
Absolutely, and of course, myself being in Montreal, we need to have more Dwarf Nation in Montreal. I've seen them in
Yes.
Ottawa, but Montreal is being starved of
Well,
the dwarves.
you can be our agent for Montreal. You're the kingpin of
The
that town.
kingpin.
So I'm gonna just have you book us in Montreal. How about that?
There you go. I can do that. That shouldn't
You
be a
can do
problem.
that. I know you can do that. So you book the date in Montreal, and that'll be done.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to. It'll have to be a after Habs beats the Leafs post game show.
Oh, that's a whole other show. I'm not going to talk about that.
There you go. Thank you, Darrel. Always a pleasure.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Cheers.
See you again.